Welcome to Beyond Marketing, the podcast. I'm Maira Genovese, the founder and CEO of Imaging Power, a global integrated market agency. Today, I'm joined by Matthew Spiteri, head of Global Brand Communication and Advocacy at Kérastase, part of the L'Oréal Group. Matthew has built a truly global career, coming from Sydney, London, and now Paris, shaping how some of the world's most iconic brands think about advocacy, culture, and leadership. Today, we'll be diving into his journey, what a brand advocacy really means at global scale, how leadership and purpose translate into real impact, and where the beauty and haircare industry is heading next. Welcome to Beyond Marketing, the podcast, Mark.
Great to be here.
Glad that you came all the way from Paris.
It's not too far. For you guys, I would.
That's good. So thank you so much. So very fascinating about your journey and your, global career path. Tell us about, you were born in Sydney.
Yeah.
From Sydney to Malta, Malta to London, and now Paris. How that built you into this amazing global leader that you are today?
Yeah, I think I've had so many different experiences in different countries, and I think that really shapes how you see people, connections, how consumers shop differently in these different areas, and it all builds up into what we're talking about today as well, like advocacy, how people talk about subjects. So I've seen it in different areas, and I think, Sydney couldn't be more different to London in some ways, the pace and the kind of, it's a different energy. And then now in Paris, again, very different to both cities. And I think, you bring those into your experiences and it shapes how you do different strategies, how you talk to different people. But yeah, it's fascinating. I love it. Could see myself moving somewhere again as well. So
where will be next?
I don't know. I love Paris now, but I'm always open to try something new.
That's exciting. And then as you mentioned about advocacy, can you tell us, because I love your title, because your title is Head of Global Advocacy for Kérastase.
Yep.
And when Andrea was talking with me about, the opportunity of having you on a podcast, I got really intrigued, but also curious about the title of being Head Global for Democracy, because you don't see that as often.
Yeah.
What that translates into a role?
Exactly. I think advocacy is becoming a bit more broader. The way I look at it, and that we look at it in the company as well, it's a term that encompasses a bit of everything. It's whoever's speaking about your brand. That's how I view it. So whether that means kind of your more traditional influencer marketing, whether that means traditional PR and communications, campaigns come into that as well. It's anyone talking about the brand. So I think we're not just looking at it from purely a social media point of view. Advocacy is spoken word. Advocacy is consumers talking about your brand, and they're the most powerful advocates as well. So I view advocacy now, some people could see it just as thinking about influencers, but it's really a lot more broad than that.
You add employees into that equation as well?
Yes, as well. Yeah, exactly. Anyone talking about the brand.
That's exciting. And then what is exactly, when you think about creating, because a strategy to get advocacy talks about your brand. So how do you view the 360? Because as you said, consumers is important, influencers and employees, but when you have to put it all together, how strategically brands need to be in order to get all your advocacy talking about what you want them to be talking about your brand?
It's many things. I think you always need to look at the consumer first. So before you start any strategy, you need to go to who is buying your product, or who do you want to buy your product, and really kind of working back from there. So when you look at that, then who inspires those people? So then you're thinking about ambassadors or influencers. Where do they go in Kerastase? It's hair. So we're in the salon as well. So you've got hairstylists that are part of this ecosystem of advocates as well. So when you're coming up with the 360, it's all about consumer relevance, what they actually want or need. And then stepping back, and you go through the kind of pyramid of all the different ways to touch them with different messages. I think what's I'm learning is more and more important is your messaging, like being really strong and focused at one timing as well. So really going in these like big bursts of like talking about a specific subject where you kind of can reach someone in so many different ways, from, you know, an event to paid media to influencers talking about it, but going all at the same time. So you've got this kind of messaging coming at you from everywhere.
And talk about messaging, because like especially you with your, you know, like have you lived in so many different places, so the culture relevance today, it's so important. And now with social media, because your message can get across so many different countries and places simultaneously. So for brands nowadays, it's so important that the narrative and the message can resonate into multiple culture relevance.
Yeah.
So how do you manage to do that? Because I think this is the biggest challenge for any brand. It's just like how to keep your diversity, but also a message that can resonate in so many different markets.
Exactly. It's not a formula, you know, it's constantly evolving as well, because the world changes and different cultures evolve in different ways. I think from our perspective, it's having a really consistent message. That's how you build a strong brand. So no matter what market it's in, the message needs to be the same. Your brand values need to be the same, and this needs to be shown all the time and repeat messaging of this. And then once you've got that established, that's when the local nuance can really partake. And I think certain things are more adaptable for different cultures. So like in real life experiences, events, having like a real cultural resonancy and like relevancy is super key to adapt it into those.
100%.
You know, our events in real life look totally different experience to what would be in China versus Brazil or Europe, because people do events differently. People experience things in different ways in those cultures. So I think there's a real room to change your strategy and adapt it in different markets, but you need this global consistency. Your brand needs to look the same everywhere as well.
And you talk a lot about real life events, especially with a hair care brand. This is it's just so important. But then we have, you know, social media, which is equally so important. So how you guys see the importance of the human connection, which is key nowadays, but also keeping the presences on social and ensure that your community is having, you know, they are able to touch point both online and offline.
Yeah, I think you need to be doing both. I think everyone craves human connection. It's we're
Especially
humans.
nowadays with AI.
Exactly. And I think events are such a great way of bringing people together. I think we've started to bring the consumer way more into these events. So it's not just the event for the lucky few, like some big names that can do it.
Important.
Yeah, and like bringing them into the story, and then how that translates on social. So, you know, you can tell if someone's at a place and they're enjoying it and they're putting it on their social media as well. It's like getting that connection through from the event into then social media. I think purely digital activations can be done, but if you've got the opportunity to really bring people in on another level, it's going to make the brand feel much more authentic, more lived in,
100%.
more purpose, and involve people. And I think hairstylists as well, it's an in-person
It's
connection.
in-person
It's
connection.
part of our brand. Like it's about sitting in the salon chair and having that conversation with your stylist, and that's a real big part of it. So
Do you take those conversations, like as you said, when you go to speak with hairstylists, do you take, you know, their advice in things that they would like to see it or change within the product, and you take this when you're product development?
absolutely, they're the ones using it, and they can feel it, and they feel the changes that it can make on your hair, and they're like really invested in it. They're passionate. These hairstylists, it's a vocation. They're really interested in what they do. So yeah, you always take the feedback back.
And then in terms of like generations consumer, right? Because you're in a moment in the world that you have, of course, our Gen Zs, and we got our millennials, and you have the alpha coming. And then when it comes to social media platform, we have TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat, and then YouTube, just to mention a few. So a brand like Kérastase, of course, you know, like your consumers, they come from, you know, young generation to old generation, because it's such an established hair care brand. So how do you take that when it comes to communication and the right message for the right generation?
Yeah. It's super interesting. So I think there was a really big focus in the past few years that every brand around the world was really on this really big Gen Z
Oh my
focus.
God, it's
It's
an
like
obsession,
everything
right?
needs to work for Gen Z, everything. And I think some brands maybe even went a bit too focused on that, forgetting then their core
I totally agree.
demographic. You know, Kérastase, our demographic goes from Gen Z all the way up to boomers, and we're a heritage brand. But then what we have to do is adapt. So how do you bring in the younger generations? Because it's life cycle of a consumer. You need the younger
Exactly.
ones coming into the brand. And we do that in a variety of ways. It's not just through the campaigns and the messaging and channels. It's also through product development, making sure that there's products that's more suited to a younger audience.
Audience.
So whether that's maybe on Kerastase, like something a bit more simple, a bit more fun, great like packaging design, things like this. And then you've got other ranges that can be a bit more serious that a customer that's really
Yeah.
interested in doing a lot of research into it will know about. So I think it's super important that you're always evolving the brand and bringing more people into it, but not losing your core demographic as well. And giving them things that they are excited
They
about as
excited
well.
about it.
Reaching them in the fun way, you know, with different ambassadors, making sure they feel seen and reflected in the brand. Having a brand purpose that relates to them as well. So I think, yeah, it's a constant struggle to bring
But what
everyone
would say,
together.
yes, that what would be like the main challenge you would say to
I think it's how you reach different people. I think all the channels are evolving so quickly.
so
I mean,
quickly?
in my career, when I started my career, TikTok wasn't
Not a
meant like it
thing,
wasn't a thing.
yes.
So I'm not a native on TikTok, which is quite interesting when you're doing marketing channels for that.
Totally.
So I think that's the hardest part is like the channels. And right now there's such a constant need for content.
Yes.
We have content fatigue constantly. And years ago, a brand would put one campaign out for the year, 30 seconds,
And that's it.
and that's it. That does not cut it anymore. So this constant need for content is really,
And then I really love that point because yes, content became, but I feel like now it's like is a non-negotiable part of any brand strategy, but also influencers as well because it's a at the same time that brand need to be constantly creating content. When you talk about advocacy and it comes to influence, especially, is all about creating
exactly because
content.
you want your content to live on your own platforms and then have
Yeah,
the real brand consistency, and then for that to be able to take off into organic content. So what we're seeing, like I call it like brand love, like when you get your brand to that point where people are automatically talking about it organically, and then they can fuel your content
your
needs.
content.
And we see it like a few of our products went viral last year, based on a strategy of like our products, like key pillars, like our kind of heroes, we call them like our top 5 products. And then we started really like pushing those constantly. And then they really took their own life in TikTok.
That's amazing.
Millions and millions of views, and people just now talking about them, which is, I think, the dream of any brand
The
to have
dream
that
of any
organic.
brand,
Yeah.
especially TikTok, because TikTok can goes viral really
Yeah.
quickly.
And having it sustained. And then what do you do with that? We then put in strategies to, you know, focus those products more on different campaigns, working with e-retailers to bring that out a bit more. And you can really then push it further.
And then when it comes to content, you mentioned about ambassadors, it's very challenge for a brand, especially a brand like Kérastase, to really identify what is the right ambassador that goes back to your point that can actually speak across so many different generation, different markets and different cultures. What are the criteria for you to select a global ambassador?
So there's a few. I think when you really step back from it, it's authenticity.
Yeah.
Someone that really relates and feels like they encompass the brands as well. But when you're choosing an ambassador, you'll have different KPIs, different priorities. Are you looking for global reach? Are you looking to work with someone to build your brand awareness? Or are you looking for someone that resonates with the brand where you can like see them in a campaign and you realize, oh, that's
Yes. Wow.
Kerastase. Culturally as well, are you looking for someone that can really resonate in a different area? Or do you want someone that can try and do it all? When brands are trying to do it all,
It's impossible.
it's impossible. It's really hard to find someone that ticks every single box. Especially when you're looking in a brand to have diversity, and I don't mean just like different backgrounds of like countries and markets that they're from, but real like diversity and expression. Like we're a brand that's all about femininity, and it's like there's very different ways to express femininity. So bringing in those different elements as well. So for us, we just signed Demi Moore as our
Yes,
new
I
brand
saw
ambassador.
it. That is just incredible.
Incredible. And I think we just launched it last month, and the response, the sentiment on it was like 100% positive because it was authentic. People have talked about her hair for her whole career.
Yeah,
It's
for the whole
part of
career.
it's there's very few women in the world that are known specifically for their hair. So that authenticity was just
Really
captured, and when
resonates,
it
yeah.
came out, it made sense. People were like, this is just makes sense.
And she talked with through all the generations
Yeah.
because we all love her, since I was 15, 14, Ghost
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, she's had a really great resurgence, if you will, that Gen Z love her as well. And that's super hard to find someone that
Super hard to
resonates
find.
with boomers and Gen Z in a cool way. And I mean, she's the
I
coolest.
mean,
So,
she's the coolest.
yeah.
That is so exciting. And then when you say like she's now the global ambassador for the brand across all touch points, when it comes to social, ROL, out of home.
Exactly, and we'll be seeing a lot more in the coming months.
That is very
she is.
exciting.
But it's it's really interesting because with our distribution, we're in salon as well. So these ambassadors are very everywhere. You'll end up seeing their face when you walk down
And
the
for a
street.
salon must be incredible to be able to have Demi Moore as a face of Kérastase into their salons. It's a win to win for everyone in the end. So let's talk about leadership from purpose to action, because it's not every brand that do the talk.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's easier to say that you're a purpose-led brand and then actually execute what you say.
Yep.
But looks like you guys are doing this amazingly well with the power talk. Talk me more about what is this and what is the purpose and how this is actually impacting in a different way that is not just like the selling part of the brand.
I think when you go back, when you're doing something with purpose, consumers don't just want a brand anymore. They need to align with the brands. When you're shopping for anything, people are now thinking, what is this brand? What does it do in the world? Do I actually align with it? Is that interesting to me? So when we're looking at Kérastase, there's lots of studies out there that if like 95% of the world's brands disappeared, people wouldn't care. People aren't in love with the brand. And I want us to be one of those 5% that is loved. And this means then going further beyond products. And Power Talks is a great example of this because we identified our core demographic as women, and we wanted to see what are the challenges, the interests of women that relates specifically to the demographic that we go out to. So something close to them, something personal.
It's amazing.
And we did studies, a lot of it led into confidence. And we identified with a lot of studies the confidence gap between men and women. 1 out of 2 women rate themselves less confident than men. Wow. And we see this as a really big thing in young formative areas between the ages of 16 and 25, that this gap can really widen. And so what we have done is we've partnered with now 16 different non-government organizations around the world to partner with them to bring Power Talks. And what this is flash mentoring. So different from normal mentoring, which is like a program over months.
Super cool.
This is kind of one conversation can change your life. In a moment where you're at that crossroads or you need some advice, it's partnering young women with experienced women, woman to woman, to have that one conversation that can inspire them, that can help them with their issues. And we've done surveys after this, and 90% show a change in confidence.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, it goes from different things. With Power Talks, we do these very large scale events, and I call them the inspiring part. It's about bringing women into a room together. You feel that emotion, you feel the connection, the energy, and people feel great after it. And I think when you then look at Kerastase and the product we sell, the campaigns we do, it's all about this strong, liberated femininity that comes out in the campaigns and the product. And I think that relates really nicely to then what we do on the non-product side.
And the stock is globally, or is more
Yes.
specifically in a few
It's
countries?
global. It's now in 16. We
Okay.
have ambitions to go further than 16 as well. We've reached, I think the latest is about 5,000
That's
mentorship
incredible.
sessions. Exactly.
Okay.
So you've got tangible results. You've
Which
got,
is because then and this is another important thing, because you guys can actually have the tangible result, which is again is talking the talk and making the action and showing the results.
exactly. And, we do these big events and it's kind of known now, like people want to be invited to it. They want to attend. They want to see it on social. They're really interested in it. And we bring different viewpoints to our consumer, and yeah, it's great.
And then you do that in the way that you also inspiring people that is inside the corporation, right?
Exactly.
Because it's a way that is not just inspiring the external, but I believe the internal as well.
We do a lot internally. We actually are all trained on like we call it also the bias gap. So we all do training on that. Then we do a lot of internal mentoring as well within the group, which is great.
Which is amazing. Yeah. And then like moving a little bit from, the impact and the leadership, but still on the same subject about your leadership, right? Because you've been navigating so many different markets. When we come to different countries, different languages and leadership, how do you, Matthew, how do you lead with change and adapt your leadership according to the, all the experience that you already having all across different markets and countries?
I think the experience has really helped me being on different markets because I'm in a global role now. And traditionally, some of the global roles were people that had no actual market experience. So there was sometimes a disconnect of what could actually work in reality. And I think the experience that I bring in is this real practicality in my role because I've been on the flip side in London, executing global campaigns and knowing how it works. So in my leadership, I really bring that in. And I think it's bringing people along the ride with you.
So important.
So when my markets know that I've been in that situation, I co-create strategies with them because we need their experience.
Exactly.
That feeds our strategy, and it's not us and them. It's really bringing it together. And I think that's what I try and bring in with like our different markets, but also within my team as well. Like having those, like bringing everyone together, different viewpoints. I think that's the strength in it.
Career-wise, do you think leadership is is kind of, I don't know, I'm talking about myself, but people just ask, oh, what is the challenge that you see yourself as a business owner? What is the challenge, the most challenge? I always say that's leadership, because leadership is such a responsibility of how you inspire and lead people and bringing people together. Exactly what you said.
Yeah, I think the challenge is always balancing all your different priorities. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a business. You are there to sell.
I
like,
love
that is
that,
also
yes.
the reality of like it's not something to be ashamed of. That's what we're doing.
So true.
So it's really inspiring people for that purpose, making people passionate about it as well. I think like if you don't have the passion for what you do, it's really hard to
It's
lead
really
people.
hard. I always say that. So it's like without passion, it's very, even if you're very good in what you do, but without the passion, it's just to move the needle is quite of complex.
Yeah, and it's as a leader, you can't like if your team isn't passionate or motivated, then it's going to be a really difficult job to get things done. So I'm always looking at ways that you can bring those passion points in it. Like I'm so passionate about what I do. I love events. I love advocacy. I love campaigns. And I think, bringing that excitement is a really great way to lead as well.
No, 100%. And then these events you mentioned, RL experience, we saw 2025, so many brands doing so much more events in RL experience, because I think everyone is craving human connection. And I think in the era of AI, where there's a lot of talks about AI taking over this and that, but it's still people screaming for, I want connection, I want to be interacted, I want to be going to an event. In 2026, when you look at the numbers, it's just like 42% will increase when it comes to ROL experience. What that looks like for you guys at Kerastase?
So last year we launched a new product called Gloss Absolute. And we started the campaign in real life. So the day that it went live was the day of an event in New York. And that's when our media went live. That's when it was revealed in Salon. That's when the campaign went live on social. We did everything on this one point. But the event itself was the kickoff. It's the thing that got the most attention. And what we did, many brands have done a pop-up before. I'm not saying we reinvented the wheel there, but what we did do, I feel like we broke down the kind of barriers for the consumer in a different way. We had our 2 brand ambassadors that were there in real life. We had them on the street at the pop-up. They were live, getting people down to it. Then you went in. Then there were influencers. Then the next day, consumers, it was open to them. So everyone got the same experience. So the person walking down the street in New York had the same experience as Emily Ratajkowski. So it really brought people together. The day of the actual consumer part, I got a call at 5 a.m. from security being like, people are already queuing.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my gosh, people love us. Like, it's great to see when people are really interested in the brand. But that really kicked it off. And then what we did, we replicated the event in all our different markets. We did about 23 events over the course of the next months.
Wow.
That had the same look and feel, the same beautiful universe of Discourse Absolute, but with the cultural relevancy. So you were able to hit every consumer, but with this, as I was saying before, with that consistency. And the events, by the time it got to release in, let's say, Thailand, people were waiting for the event to happen in their market. Because they knew that's
going to happen then.
Yeah, and which was great to see. It really brought it on. And that's where real life experience, you can't beat that, because all our consumers, let's say you get 2,000 through in the day, those consumers are posting about it. They're telling their friends about it. They're the best advocate that you can have.
The FOMO for the next market.
Exactly.
To be excited about it.
And now people are like, when's the next one? Like, what's happening next? And
can you tell what's happening next?
There will be. Well, I think in real life experience is never going to be leaving our brand. It's so important. And there'll be many more. And we're always looking now, what hasn't been done? What's something different for a consumer?
Or like listening, right? Social listening, what your other consumers are actually asking for, and how can we create an event and experience around what they want.
And I think new experiences are key. Like,
is a key.
Pop-ups, maybe there's a bit of a pop-up fatigue as well. Like, a lot of brands are doing them. So it's now, how do you do it a bit differently? What do you
guys participate on cultural relevance big events from markets? For example, I don't know, are you guys into like big sport global events?
So we don't.
How do we approach
we're not currently sponsoring any. I think for me, our strategy on cultural relevancy, because it needs to be authentic to hair.
Yeah.
So what we look at is like, working with celebrity hairstylists for big events. That's a really good way to get in there, kind of in that cultural relevancy, in that talk. Like, let's say the Oscars are coming up, and we'll work with some of the biggest celebrity stylists, and that gives like a bit more authenticity to the brand. Totally. I think sometimes sponsorships are great in different areas, but I think it really needs to align with the brand. And when it doesn't, it's quite easy to see.
It doesn't feel authentic.
Exactly. So I think I love to say we play in our lane. Like, it's an area that's very us. We're very celebrity. We're very hair. We're very red carpet with that high glamour. So it's quite natural for us to go in there.
And then hair industry, it's a huge industry, right? And now there's so much talk around K-beauty, but now K-wellness. How do you guys see this coming?
Yeah, I think, the hair care market is booming. It's one of the biggest growth sectors of beauty. People are starting to understand it more. We call it the skinification. Imagine 10 years ago, no one knew what hyaluronic acid was. But now consumers know ingredients. Consumers really know their ingredients. But it wasn't really applied to hair as much. So we started borrowing a lot of the cues from skin and how to infuse that into hair. And a lot of brands do that as well. And I think, there's a big shift. People want stuff that works. So, we are one of the biggest in research and development. Our advanced science teams at L'Oreal are incredible. Always coming up with what's next, what works. Consumers want to know that. Consumers read through it now. It's not just everything. A pretty product.
No, and not a good packaging that's going to sell.
It needs to work. And then I love that you touched on wellness, because there's this real shift now in beauty from the inside out. A lot of people are talking about longevity, and it's not just a marketing buzzword. It's a real concept.
It's real concept, yes.
And, people are looking at every part of their beauty and wellness, and it's about what you're putting into the body as much as what's on the outside. And I think this is a real change. It's a change in consumer behavior. It's happening right now, but you can see brands tapping into this a bit more, and there'll be a lot more in the next years. That's focused on that for sure.
And you guys are thinking about different products
Yeah,
that
exactly.
can be.
I think, it relates really well to Kerastase because we start with the scalp.
Yeah.
The scalp is the living organism. It's where the follicle is. So if you can do something that can go inside, that's how you can actually really transform your hair. So we've been playing in that area for a while. We call it from the scalp to the tip of your fiber. So it's really about going inside and what can make changes to the body and make your hair look and feel amazing. Yeah.
And do you have a timeline for that? Is it something that...
I think it's just going to continually be happening. There'll be new ranges that different brands put out, I'm sure. And also the language that people really talk about it with.
Yeah, because this is another thing, because as you said, we now understand ingredients. We read ingredients because we are much more conscious about what we are not just putting inside, but the skin. Before, you would buy a makeup or a skincare, hair care. You wouldn't even care about what is the ingredient. We're just going to use. But now we all know that whatever you put on your skin can go straight to your cells, and then going to your cell, go inside your body. So we are all much more aware as well what you put on external, because we know that there's an impact on an internal.
Exactly. And I think, consumers are very savvy about everything. But then there's also what comes with that is a lot of misinformation as well about certain ingredients. And I think as a brand, it's our role to educate people as well. So, which is a really tricky thing. It's not just about a pretty campaign that looks nice. You need to also be talking about the science. That's also what brings great credibility to a brand as well, when you're actually talking about how it's been developed, what goes into it. So it's this real balance, especially with Kerastase. It's this balance of beautiful, premium sensuality, this lovely feeling, but also that really works.
Really works. And also you have to find a language that can resonate and people can understand.
Exactly.
Because it's not everyone that can read it straight away and understand what we're talking about. It's just be honest about what your ingredients are, and then also in a way that can educate for people to understand what they're reading.
Being understandable and simplifying a message without losing the actual juice of it as well, because some scientific messages can't be just completely simplified. They are a bit more in depth.
And then talk about scientific language. There's so many brands that are talking about science behind their product, but not necessarily all the brands has a science behind the product.
Exactly.
The thing it's became a language that brands think that they have to have in order to ensure that consumers will find attractive, because there's a science related into their product.
Yeah, for sure. I think when you look at consumer studies and you think is a brand resonating in scientific, is that a good thing or not? But you have seen a shift. There's many brands that are really doing
that talk
a lot
about
of things.
science, organic, cruel-free, and then the list goes sustainable, and then the list goes on.
And I think some brands can really spread themselves very thin across all these different pillars and messaging. I think what is really authentic as well, picking your lanes, where professional luxury hair care, we don't stick out from those messaging. We're always talking about the hairstylist, we're talking about the science, and we're talking about the beautiful beauty of the product, and keeping it very focused in that. I think there's a real risk when you start talking about all different kind of buzzwords of consumers, because you can appeal a bit, but then what is your brand at the end of the day? What makes it stand out from others? Not everyone's going to love every brand, so you're not there to cater for every single person.
And you're not supposed to as well,
exactly.
Right? And then when you look at, the industry, we talk about the wellness, but the hair industry, how do you, Matthew, see this, where this industry is going?
I think this connection part, I think the hairstylist is super important. The salon is super important.
Super.
Because again, when you go about experience, in the salon, you can have a beautiful experience. It's not just about hair care, but it's about really taking sometimes the time out of your day to do that, to sit in the chair, to have a spa environment. I think this is where we'll see a shift back into these kind of more indulgent experiences. I think that's really interesting in premium hair care. And also personalization. How can products feel adaptable for you? With Kerastase, we've got this technology called K-Scan, which you can do in the salon, and it basically can
That's cool.
show you your scalp. It can determine your age. It can show you, is your hair thinning? Do you have this? And then you can get your hairstylist will come up with the exact range.
Wow, that's
going to
incredible.
help that. So I think people are very interested in bespoke and customized.
100%.
And I think that when you tie in experience and personalization, I think that is
There's a
like the real
winning.
where.
Yeah. Matthew, what an incredible conversation. And then I love to know that, you guys are just so ahead of the game when it comes to, understanding where the industry is going, but just not losing the heritage of the brand. Because I think this is another challenge, right? How to evolve, how to keep up with new generation, how to keep up with so many content that now we need to produce without losing who you are as a brand. And I think you guys do this brilliant.
Yeah, it's a struggle. Being culturally resonant as a heritage brand is a real, like, there's a back and forth and there's a
100%.
balance. And I think we do strike that well, and people love heritage brands as well because it comes with all its history. But then how do you translate that into new
To
consumers
the
and
new consumer,
messages?
exactly. And then, like, for Kérastase, is a brand that was born within L'Oreal. It's not a brand that has been acquired or already there in the market. So I think that's the whole story about the heritage as the brand. It's just so unique.
Yeah.
And then to keep that heritage in there intact but evolve without losing that is
Exactly.
is
And
the
reminding consumers as well, hair care didn't exist before Kerastase. It was
so
purely
true.
clinical. It was just hygiene. So we brought care into hair. That's literally the name of the brand. And that meant like giving women a solution that was actually more fun, more indulgent, more beautiful to have in the shower. So yeah, it's always great to be like, we invented this, so we need to stick really
with that. And then
stick
on
to
the
it.
top of it, doing this amazing job that you guys doing with the power talk is just bringing the confidence back in women, which
Yes.
is not every brand that's thinking about, how to use your, brand strong heritage to actually do good.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I think you guys doing an amazing job. So thank you so much for being here for this incredible conversation, and hope you have enjoyed. And then for everyone that's listening us today, please make sure you follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, and Apple. And now we have our own social media on Instagram, Beyond Marketing, the podcast, where you can see all the, the guests that were coming up, all the teasers. So make sure you follow us. And then, Matthew, once again, thank you so much for
you.
being here.
Thank
Thank you.